Let's talk about one of the most important things you can do as a parent. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, oddly in the context of the Epstein files and how do so many people get to this point where they're capable of such monstrous things. And it always goes back, right? It's easy to just say they're just bad people, but what happened before? What happened earlier in their life, because little babies aren't born monsters. And from studying psychology in college and just being like obsessive about psychology ever since, my understanding is there are predispositions, cognitive wiring that makes somebody more likely to become a sociopath or a psychopath, but those things need to be activated. They're not guaranteed. So what activated these people? And I really go back to, there was a moment when we were, parenting my son, who we then learned was on the spectrum and has ADHD. But at the time we didn't know, and it just looked like he was out of control. He was just wild and challenging and obstinate. And I felt like a bad mom. I felt like I wasn't doing enough to rein him in or control him or correct his behavior. And it was really frustrating, and I was down on myself. And understanding his wiring was a huge shift into how we looked at his behavior and how we addressed like specific situations and got him the support that he needed. But a lot of it also came down to, I realized when I was exhausted, as I often was, and because when he was young, like a toddler, we had my daughters, now we had two young children. And when I was at my wit's end, I would snap more. I would get frustrated. I would lash out. And now this seems really obvious, but I think as parents, we really kind of brush it off like, yeah, I should be more regulated so that I can be a better parent. No, really, really. We're so afraid of being selfish, afraid of not crafting our children to have the best experience they can have. So one thing we do is like, let's sign them up for 100 things because we want to expose them to the world. And now we're running around and we're burnt out and we're snippy and we've lost our sense of playfulness. And that is the thing that the kids crave from us the most, is that presence, the ability to slow down. My son will even say, when I'm like distracted and he's trying to get my attention, witness me. He'll just yell out, witness me. They just want to be witnessed. And when we're too busy and dysregulated and in our own mind, we are less able to do that. We're less available to them. So I really had to take a step back, and this is when they're really young. This is really hard. It got a little easier as they got older and you weren't trying to like just protect them from major injury all the time. But one, if you're even considering having kids and you don't have a super supportive partner, a partnership, I've noticed there'll be, say, men that say, I want to have lots of kids, but they're not demonstrating now that they're going to be in partnership with you. Like they're not helping around the house. They're not tuned into your needs and like taking care of you as the mom. No, like, no, you need a real partner that's going to be in it with you and not look at that as like the women's work. No, I hope we're so beyond that at this point. But when I started realizing I needed to cultivate my playfulness again and create a sense of safety in my world, like things were okay, that I could be grateful for the smallest things, that I go back to the journaling exercise I talked about in a past video where journaling for 10 minutes and doing this whole narrative might be daunting, but I would sit with my journal and just write down 3 things from the day before that I was grateful for, and they were often so simple. They weren't the big, grandiose events, and it helped me realize how many magical moments I already had in my life, and then caused me to look for more. And I started to regulate my nervous system so that I wasn't reacting to their behavior. Like, they can do something in the moment that seems so frustrating and so ludicrous, but you can respond rather than react. You can redirect. You have the capacity to do that. And I think so many of us do not do this. I didn't do this before. And then our children are craving this from us, and they're doing whatever they can to get it. And then they're creating stories in their mind about their worth and their value because their parents aren't paying attention to them, whether they're misbehaving or being good. You know, we can validate our kids when they're performing well. We give them attention. We're excited. It doesn't seem harmful. But when they're too much or they're difficult, we turn away or we shame them or we shout at them, and it sends the message that their emotions are not okay. And doing this also, like resetting my nervous system, made my relationship with my husband better too. And now they see us, the deep affection that we have for each other that has really grown over time, and we're modeling a healthy relationship. You can't tell your kids much. You can't give them a list of things and say, this is life, children. I've given you the recipe. They're going to watch and they're going to observe. That's where their beliefs are going to be formed. And they see my husband and I, like, touching each other throughout the day and kissing. And when they see people on TV, like being affectionate, they're like, that's you and dad. Like, they know there's so much love in our house. And that's modeling for them that that's what they're going to accept when they're adults. They're not going to accept anything less than that. Bad behavior isn't going to be attractive to them because it feels familiar, because that's what they saw in their house, like disrespect, lack of communication, the inability to resolve conflict, because it's not that we don't have conflict, but we model for them, Daddy and I disagreed on this thing, but we talked about it and here's what we decided. And it's showing them that we can disagree and repair. And it really all came back to I had read so many parenting books early on, and I think at times I was even overriding my own intuition, especially when it came to my son. And if I had just focused more on how can I regulate, create a sense of joy and peace within myself, a lot of this will start to make sense. There won't be a rule book that I'll need to follow. And again, we're not perfect. There's many things I would do differently as parents, but I feel like this is something that is so important, because these kids will have a lot of choices in their life, and I can't be there to direct the choices, but I can create a sense of value in them, a sense of safety and optimism in the world by modeling it in myself. I can't tell them, go be happy, be optimistic. I have to show them by doing it for myself. So I hope that this makes sense. I hope that this lands. And it may seem like an exaggeration to some, but I think that what I'm talking about here is the key to a better world, a better society, of raising children that aren't broken. I mean, nobody's broken, but that feel like they're broken. And then they have coping mechanisms in wounds that manifest in mistreatment of others, mistreatment of themselves, violence. Hurt people really do hurt people. These people that are doing these terrible things are obviously not healthy individuals. And where did that come from? So this is one of the most important things that we can do. And it doesn't matter what religion you are, what you believe in terms of a higher power. This is your everyday psychology, your everyday treatment of yourself. So I'd love to hear what you think of this. Would really, truly love that. So please comment below and let's talk about it.